everyone. Today I received my copy of Tsukihime, a piece of blue glass moon. Now, I reckon many of you watching will probably already know the visual novel. You'll be a fan of this story, or maybe of Type Moon visual novels in general. But I'm hoping there may also be some newcomers, so I want to take that into account and just give you a brief introduction into how this came about, what it is, and how it fits into everything else. So Type Moon was founded in Japan a long time ago by two people. It started out very modestly, an author and an illustrator. And as far as I know, Tsukihime was their first released work, a visual novel for PC in Japan in the year 2000. It proved to be a success, and they went on with their work, producing follow-ups, spin-offs, and other novels. I need to mention that originally this story was classified as an adult visual novel. But quite soon, once it became popular, a non-adult version was produced in Japan already for the PS2 and afterwards other platforms. So you've got both versions in existence. Now, Type Moon followed up the Tsukihime visual novel with a new one that was the beginning of what is now a huge franchise, and it is called simply Fate. The original novel is Fate Stay Night, and it came out again for PC and as an adult visual novel in Japan in 2004. Now, you may have heard of Fate, even if you haven't heard of Tsukihime before. In fact, Fate Stay Night was my introduction to the Fate universe, which by now is incredibly huge. So I won't go into that side of things. We want to do just Tsukihime today. But I just want to show you that for decoration, I have this little wall cloth for Fate Extella. One of the many games and spin-offs that came out of the Fate universe. Now, a remake of the original 2000 visual novel Tsukihime was announced back in 2008. Oh yes, it took a long time. The completely reworked new version came out in Japan in 2021. The localized version is now finally available in the West in English. The reason why I want to show you this edition today is when I received it, I hadn't really expected too much, because I know that while it's called a limited edition, it really doesn't contain very much. But what there is of really nice quality. And you know, I'm a bit of a stickler for that, so I wanted to share it with you. So I mentioned the subtitle, which is a piece of blue glass moon, and that already indicates that this is only the first part of the reworked visual novel. There is a second part coming at some point in the future, and I just need to consult my notes for that. That second part will be called The Other Side of the Red Garden. And as you know, visual novels work by having separate routes. This first part contains only two routes. The completely rewritten and reworked ones for the two very important female characters are Quaid and Ciel. So on the back of the box it says, Tsukihime, a piece of blue glass moon, collects the two tails that make up the near side of the moon, a portion of the original Tsukihime Arcuade's scenario, Moon Princess, and Ciel's scenario, Midnight Rainbow. So, as you might guess, the remaining roots will be in Part 2. Part 2 will contain the 3 far side roots. That's for Akiha Tono, Hisui, and Kohaku. That's the 2 maids, as far as I remember. The author also stated that a long scrapped root for Satsuki Yumizuka will be included in the other side of Red Garden. And a trailer for this second part to come can be unlocked once you finish this first part of Tsukihime. So the first thing that impressed me about this edition is the box. Yes, as you know, I'm a bit of a cardboard aficionado. I do like a good sturdy box, a well-made box, and this most certainly is. And I don't have to fiddle at the top with these little flaps to open them up, and invariably you sometimes have a little tear in there or something. No, this box is quite simply a lift-up lid box. I didn't even notice. Little quotes from the story. If you're familiar with the story or the novel, you might recognize them. And inside it says, "Just how beautiful the moon is tonight." This tranquil scene comes right after a blood-red, disturbing one. Tsukihime constantly seesaws between these 2 extremes, maintaining utmost tension all the time. So the only 2 names mentioned on the box are Type Moon, obviously the developer, and Aniplex. So I assume between the 2 they have collaborated on the production of this, and I hope you'll agree with me that they've done a nice job, especially once I show you the art book. But first I'm going to rip the cellophane off the game. It's rated M17+, and that will be, I imagine, actually more for the amount of gore and violence and disturbing imagery that is in the novel, as far as I know. And nothing further is included, just the disc. And no reverse cover design either. Before we have a look at the art book, very carefully, because there was a spoiler warning sticker on the cellophane outside. I just popped it inside here. So if you don't know anything about the story or the characters, it is recommended that you don't really look at the pictures before playing the game, which is a very hard ask in my opinion. I will have a look and just show you 1 or 2 which are safe, I hope. But before we do that, I want to show you something else to do with Tsukihime, and that's the anime. Oh yes, they made an anime, of course they did. It was very popular at the time. I think it was JC Staff who did it. Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. That's clearly Arcuade on the front cover there. Deep breath. The anime. No, I'm not going to discuss it in depth today, and please just note that I'm not a Type Moon or Tsukihime expert or anything. I'm just sharing what I know and what interests me. Now, the anime is generally considered to be bad, and that is bad with a capital B. In fact, many Tsukihime fans like to deny its existence because it's just considered so bad. Well, the problem is it does exist. You cannot deny it. But why did I decide to get the anime when I could see straight away that the consensus was it's not really worth watching, you want to play the visual novel? Well, I just want to say, for every curse in life, there might also be a redeeming quality, just a tiny little bright speck of light in the darkness. The reason why I mention this is that I wanted the anime specifically so I can share the story with Poodlepa. Poodlepa's never going to play the visual novel and get, into the nitty-gritty of the whole Tsukihime universe. But we watched the anime together, and I could see straight away, even before I've played the novel, that it's not terribly good. No, it's pretty mediocre, to be polite. But the story was intriguing enough that we watched it through. And the great thing was that Poodlepa found it really interesting. He was looking forward to watching it. And that is important to me personally. I would never recommend to someone who is deeply into anime that they get this and watch it because it's a good anime. No, I wouldn't. But Poodlepa and I have very different interests in life. We have different work experience, we have different projects, different hobbies, completely different. But we always share everything with each other. There's one surefire mistake you can make to get your marriage to fail, and that is not talking to each other. We share everything because that's what we like doing. And the anime was an easy way of doing so. It means when I talk probably enthusiastically about this visual novel in the future, he'll be able to understand what I'm talking about. So that's great for both of us. It may not be a good anime, but it has served a purpose. So I'll have a quick look in the art book for something safe to share. It's quite an extensive art book. It contains illustrations, character profiles, locations, seventh holy scripture, weapon and creature design, dissecting the lines of death. If you know the story, you will have an idea what that means. Unused designs, Tsukihime glossary, and a height chart, which is quite cute, and I think it's safe to share. That's right at the end. The book reads from right to left, in the usual Japanese way, and that is this double spread illustration. So you've got the whole cast there. As a boy, the protagonist meets a mysterious woman. Is it dream or reality? We don't know. I only cover the first 30 minutes of Tsukihime in these short video clip scenes, so you're only getting a little bit of background and setting info. No big spoilers. But if you want to avoid any kind of story reveal, however small, then please skip this section via the timestamps. Thank you. She's called Aoko Aozaki, and she plays a much bigger role in the other visual novel, Witch on the Holy Night. She talks with Shiki about this strange condition he has. Some sections of dialogue are voice acted, but there's also a fair amount that isn't. You can see from the way the graphics are done that they have cleaned up the visuals very nicely, and the character designs are certainly appealing, but it is clearly an older visual novel. You can't disguise that, and they haven't tried to either. So we are getting the authentic experience, but just in a freshened, remastered version. Here Aoko talks about Shiki cutting the lines. This is a really crucial element of the story, which is explained right from the start here in the visual novel.
どうして体中に落書きをしているんですか？この部屋もところどころひびだらけで、今にも変なの。みんな体に落書きしてる。なんだろうこれ。
どうやってベッドを壊したんだね、四季君。
I think the opening is really masterful, whereas in the anime they started with a fast action scene, which was only confusing. So with the visual novel you feel right from the start that you're in good hands with the storyteller. Aoko gives the boy a pair of glasses, which are anything but ordinary. These glasses allow Shiki to grow up and lead a fairly normal life as a boy.
その線は消えたわけじゃないわ。ただ四季、君は個人が保有する能力の中でもひどく得意な能力を持って、神様は何の意味もなく力を分けない。君の未来には必要になる時があるから、その力自体は結果をいいものにするか悪いものにするかは。
We then catch up with him as a high school student, and that's where the story proper starts. The book is well produced, with good paper. The designs are often quite intricate, so it's important to have a really good print quality to show all that tiny detail. I really can't find anything to criticize. Now, one section that will be really helpful is the glossary. That sounds kind of, dry and unappealing, but no, if you really want to get into the whole world building, those details will be a great assistance, I think. There are a surprising number of illustrations about the locations and the architectural design down to the last detail. I'm not totally sure whether I can show that, because every page also has some detail and information on it. So what I'll do is I'll just take some photos and we'll crop the relevant parts so I can just show you some of the design quality. And yes, Neko Arc has a page in here too. This is the front illustration in the book. And that's pretty much everything I have to show you from this limited edition. Just a note about the all-important dialogue choices. I noticed when looking at a guide for this visual novel that certainly some of the choices have clearly been changed in the reworking they did. So it's important to use the other features fully, especially the flow chart, which is serviceable. The menu and options are basic, but it's pretty much all you need, really. I apologise for not having done an unboxing of Witch on the Holy Night. Unfortunately, I didn't find the box until after I'd finished this video. So just some photos to show you that the Witch on the Holy Night limited edition is organised almost identically to the Tsukihime one. Basically a nice box with a very nice art book included. Kinoko Nasu wrote Witch on the Holy Night a long time ago in 1996. It was never published back then because many publishers rejected it. 16 years later, it was finally released for Windows PC in April 2012 in Japan. An enhanced version with voice acting was then released by Aniplex worldwide for the Switch and PlayStation in December 2022 and also for PC Windows on Steam in December 2023. It is, for the most part, what is called a kinetic novel, which means there are almost no dialogue choices and separate routes. It's just a straightforward, linear story, a bit like reading a novel. It is often called a prequel to Tsukihime. While it does have a standalone story, there is some overlap, especially with a few characters who also then appear in Tsukihime. I suppose you could say the general sense of the universe the stories are set in. One of the main characters in Mahoyo is Aoko Aozaki. And of course you've already met her as the magician in the video clips I showed earlier of Tsukihime. Now, I haven't played much yet of Witch on the Holy Night, but I just want to give you my very quick first impression. The graphics look more detailed, more contemporary than those of Tsukihime, and that makes sense, of course, when you consider the publication history. There is, however, one particular quality to this novel, which shows its age and presumably also the age of the author at the time. The prose often reads rather awkwardly, quite stiff, I would say. It reads very differently from Tsukihime, where the prose flows easily and naturally. Tsukihime is clearly a big step up in terms of writing skills and storytelling flair. The writing in Witch on the Holy Night often verges on the self-conscious and even self-indulgent. I sometimes wince or roll my eyes when reading it, but the good news is that the story does carry me through. It is intriguing, and I am eager to pursue it. You could say that Mahoyo shows a talent on the cusp of breaking out, and Tsukihime shows us a fully fledged talent.
So this is
the beginning of the story. Our two protagonists couldn't be more different. What is so unusual about Shizuki, and why is Aoko so disconcerted? Well, have a look at his background. and I think you'll agree that it does sound mysterious. Wouldn't you want to find out more? I certainly do.
いや、待て待て待て!
Thank you very much, as always, for your time. Please keep well. I'm Food for Dogs. Bye-bye.